All right, all right.
Wow.
Yes, 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 yes. So
Well, guess who didn't hear the music, but I'm so used to it, I had it playing in my head.
you still couldn't hear the
Not today,
music?
no.
Oh, I don't know why.
But that's okay. It's Water Cooler Wednesday, and we don't need to hear the music out loud as long as the music is still playing in our head.
Right,
That's all that matters.
right, right, right. All right, guys. All right. So, welcome back. It's another Water Cooler Wednesday, and my name is Dion Branch, and I'm your trusted Chicago realtor, and with Allure Dream Homes, brokered by EXP.
And of course, you have me here, Lisa J, the House Money Mama with Nexa Mortgage, where brokers are better. And today we are here to talk about you saw it, that's why you came, because you saw what we're talking about. Landlord and tenant
Yeah.
law. That's what we're going to be discussing today.
Yes, yes. Chicago is definitely one place where we definitely need to talk about the landlord and tenant law. So whether you're renting out your basement or you have a multi-unit building, it's critical for you as a landlord to understand the responsibilities of both sides of the lease. So we're gonna get it. We're gonna go right in, jump in, and we're gonna start talking about understanding leases uh, and for Chicago and the tenant law rights, right? So
And the state of Illinois as a whole, because Chicago is its own animal.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So the first things first, lease agreements. They should always be in writing. It needs to cover the rent amount, the due date, duration, security deposit, the terms, different terms, responsibilities of the utilities and rules for both sides. So when you're creating the lease, you make sure that you include all that information in there.
Exactly. So I know sometimes people can be more traditional and probably a little bit too trustworthy. And they'll do like what you refer to as a verbal lease, which technically that is something that you can legally do. You can't just, have a handshake agreement as they used to call it. I don't know if they still refer to it that way or not. But you can talk about what the responsibilities are going to be and just verbally agree, and that is legal. But the problem with that is it leaves way too much room for misunderstandings, for confusion, and when it comes to like the security deposit and how different things have to be managed and overseen for the state of Illinois rules, they can be very, very strict. So you don't want to be caught in a situation where maybe unintentionally, you didn't follow the rules, or maybe there's a misunderstanding because you didn't have the rules in written form. So, like Dion is saying, if you always have a written lease agreement, then that clears up any areas of gray, because then you can focus on all the things that are going to be required for a lease in the state of Illinois. And if it's anything extra that you think you may need to include for your tenant, the area that you're in or whatever, or specific to your property, then you can make sure you do that as well.
Yeah, yeah. So it's really important to understand the rules regarding the security deposit, because that's an area where a lot of landlords kind of fall short, right? So One thing they're
Mm-hmm.
saying is like if you have 25 units or more, you are required to pay interest on the security deposit annually. And when the lease ends, the deposit must be returned within like 45 days unless there's damage,
Yeah.
to the property. So a lot of times as a landlord, you're going to walk through the property with your tenant prior to them leaving, and then you should provide them, like a checklist, a check amount that says why their security deposit is has been decreased. So, all right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly. And not following the rules can be a financial issue for you, because what happens is tenants actually have a lot of rights in the state of Illinois, and they do have the right to take you to court and to sue you. And if they win, in a case like this, they would likely win double the amount of the deposit. So if you're a new landlord, you definitely want to make sure that you talk to a real estate attorney before you just go to Office Max and pick up a lease. Because a lot of times that's what people do. They say, oh, we could just go. They take it, I don't want to say willy-nilly, but they think that something like that would be sufficient for what it is that they want to do. But the thing about those leases that you would find in the store and things like that is they may not be specific to your state, or a lot of times we talk about the market in general. And in this state, and even we'll talk about it a little bit later in our segment today, but even in certain areas, like in the area of Chicago, there are some things that are very specific, and when things are specific, you want to make sure you address those things in your lease. So you have to know what those things are. And if you're not sure about it, then you definitely want to talk to somebody who would be. And it can never hurt to get legal
Yeah.
advice. I'll just say
Right. And if
that.
you want need some information, you can always put a comment in the chat below, and we can provide you a checklist of information as far as your lease is concerned and the guidelines, and then or we can also refer you to some of the attorneys that we currently work with that might be able to assist you
Yeah.
in creating a lease or making sure that you're covered by your lease. So, all right.
Yeah. And while you're down there, you can like and share too. We don't mind that either.
Right, exactly. Right. So let's talk about maintenance. Illinois says that the landlord must keep the unit habitable, right? So people have to be able to live there. We don't want to be slumlords. We don't want that. We want we want
Please.
to make sure that we're providing a place for our tenants, and so they must, it has to have heating and plumbing and electricity. And if the tenant reports an issue, the landlord has to fix it within a reasonable time. So you definitely have to be aware, especially with heating. There is a date that you have to have your heat turned on by. So I believe it's like in October.
I think it's October 15th.
Mhm.
I think it's October
Right.
15th. Yeah.
So that is the day that maybe before then you didn't have the heat on if you're the landlord is controlling the heat, right? So you only have one furnace and you're controlling the heat, then October 15th, heat must be turned on in the building.
Yeah.
So all right.
Yeah. And also, as far as fixing things within a reasonable time, something else keep in mind as far as that goes as well. I've heard stories, unfortunately, I'm sure you have too, Dion,
Mhm.
about people that had issues within their unit, and they contact the landlord, they don't send anybody out, they contact them again, they don't send anybody out, they contact them again, they still haven't sent anybody out, so that's unreasonable. You shouldn't have to repeatedly get in contact with the landlord in order to be able to get your unit addressed for whatever kind of maintenance that's needed. So it's going to be really important now that you would be the person in that position. You would be the landlord. You want to make sure that you know, I mean, just I guess kind of common sense applies. or the golden rule, as we would say, that you want to treat other people the way that you want to be treated. And if you are renting a place, then you want to make sure that if you have an issue, that your landlord is going to be attentive and make sure that you feel like a priority. They come in, they take care of anything that needs to be taken care of. You know, that's their responsibility, obviously, as soon as possible, as soon as reasonably possible. So people shouldn't be waiting, a week or two, or weeks on end in order to get maintenance type of things addressed, whether that's pests, whether that's having to fix something, the toilet, water, plumbing, whatever it might be. Any of those things, you always want to make sure that you're being responsive and attentive, so that you won't get those kind of complaints.
Yeah,
Because trust me, we do hear
yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah,
For some people, that actually ends up being one of the reasons why, because we're big on talking to people about why they want to move. Why do you want to become a homeowner? Why do you want to take that step and join the rental revolution, as they say, and to stop renting and become an owner instead? And sometimes that's a big part of the reason why, because of the fact that they had a landlord, a person or a family had a landlord that was not really the best landlord. And so they felt neglected, like they weren't prioritized, and that the things that they needed to be done, that they weren't able to get
yeah,
done. Sometimes that can push a person
yeah,
to no longer want to
yeah,
rent from
yeah,
you.
yeah. So
So,
landlords, when you're making these repairs, one thing you really have to know is that you need to give your tenants 24 to 48-hour notice that you are coming into the property. You can't just show up. You just
mm-hmm.
cannot come into the property anytime you feel like and just go into the property. Yes, you own the building. Yes, it's your unit and you're renting it out and you leased it out to someone. And so you have to respect your tenants and their rights. And so you have to give them 24 to 48-hour notice. So let's just say this.
So that means I can still come at 2 o'clock in the morning, though, right?
No, you have to have, there has to be reasonable hours. And if you missed your 48-hour notice and your maintenance person did not show up when they were supposed to show up, that does not mean that they could come the next day without you talking to the tenant
Without
and
notice.
letting them know that, hey, we're gonna have, they're not able to make it, we're gonna have to extend. Are you okay with it?
Right,
Are you okay? Because
right.
my last client, she just shared with me that the maintenance guy was actually in the unit while she was asleep. Who wants to live like that?
Wow,
Right. So
wow.
you were, and at some
To
point,
walk like, you wake up like, good morning.
right, right. You're scared, you're nervous. There's a lot of things that happen. And so that's definitely something that you don't
Right.
want to do. Even, you know, even if you're giving notice, you still have to honor the tenant. Right. You gotta honor them. So
Right, yeah. You don't want your tenant laying in the bed trying to figure out, what exactly did I do last night? How did you end up here?
exactly. Right. And yeah, so all right, all right. So
And something to keep in mind too, I think, because we didn't really hit on this, but as far as tenant rights, they tenants do have legal options, like we mentioned earlier. They could sue for about the deposit, right? But they also have rights in regards to the maintenance itself. So, for example, if you don't make the repairs, then there are certain conditions when a tenant can withhold the rent. They can make the repair themselves and deduct the cost of that from the rent. So documenting things is going to be really, really important. And also just kind of staying on top of everything as well, because you expecting to get that $2,000 check, and then it's only 1,500, and you're like, wait a minute, you
right,
know,
what's going
and
on?
it might be because they
Hmm.
exercise their right to make a repair and then withhold
Yeah,
it from the
yeah.
rent. So,
So that's definitely.
and then if the I'm sorry, go ahead. You gonna say something else, Dion?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, and then if a tenant actually just stops paying the rent, then you still have certain rules that you have to abide by. The landlords have a lot of rules. I don't know if y'all really seeing that as a theme
Hmm.
what we talking about today, but landlords do have a lot of rules. A lot of times when we're on the tenant side, we kind of feel like landlords can do whatever they want. That's really not the case. Landlords do have some rules that they are expected to follow. So, for example, if the tenant stops paying the rent, a landlord cannot just go and say, you know what, I'm gonna just change the locks. We're gonna shut off the gas, shut off the electricity. We're not gonna have any more water go to their unit. You can't just start turning things off and changing locks. You can't do that. That would actually be illegal.
Right.
And it's considered something that they call a self-help eviction, I think is
Hmm.
what they call
Yeah,
it.
and there's a lot of
So yeah,
landlords that actually do, practice this, right? So, um, as a property manager, working with people in the past, they're like, well, just go over there and shut off the electricity. No, like I can't do that, and you can't do that, right? They'll just take out the
right.
comment box, that comment circle, and the electricity off, the heat's off, just things like that,
Yeah.
take the doors off the hinges. These are bad behaviors, right? So we're not suggesting that you do these things. Right.
Right.
You have to give a person a 5-day notice. So as soon as the person does not make
Mhm.
their rent, you need to provide them what's called a 5-day notice. And so then that way, that is the beginning of the process of an eviction. So if you're consistently giving your clients 5-day notice, and you make it a practice when you actually do need to evict someone, you have a history. You have documentation that shows that they haven't been paying on time, and that now they're not
Yeah.
paying at all. And so you want to evict them. So eviction process does cost.
Yeah.
It does costs a lot. So you really need to screen your tenants before you actually take them in. So then,
Yeah.
because some tenants are experts at this, and they know how to get into a new unit, stay there for at least 7 months, and then you're trying to pay the mortgage and things, and so it makes it difficult for you. So. Mhm.
Yeah. Yep. That's very, very good advice. And the P word that we always push on Water Cooler Wednesdays is prepare. So that's another form of preparation,
Mhm.
is that you come up with a screening process that you implement for any person that you may potentially have come in as a renter. So that's excellent advice, Dion. Another thing is, as far as preparing and maintaining, would be just making sure you keep records. Record keeping is this is really a business, you all. So I know we're talking kind of from both sides today, because we are mentioning some things about tenants, but also some things about landlords. And obviously, we want to help people. If you want to become a real estate investor, then we're totally here for that, to help you with finance. Dion can help you actually finding a location that would be suitable for what it is that you want to do. So we're all for helping you with that. But we also want you to be successful and to have the right mindset about it. Because real estate investment is basically a business. You're employing yourself by getting this property and then allowing this property to make money for
Yeah.
you. So it's really a business. So with it being a business, you got to have a business mindset. You got to think about that you need to keep records. Um, Nothing is proven if it's only said, but it's not written, then it's not provable. It's hard to prove that you said something, or that somebody told you that this could happen or that would happen. It's hard to prove, because when you talk about the potential, we hope that nobody has to go to court. We hope that nobody has to evict anyone. Nobody really wants to have to participate in something like that. However, when I was in insurance, I'm not really doing it so much now, but that's one of the things, you just keep in mind. You don't get insurance because you expect to have an accident, but you get insurance in case you
Yeah.
do. So this is the same kind of mindset that you need to have, that you want to make sure that you are being prepared for what's going to be coming up next. So um, you look at, okay, what do I have to do in order to make sure that I have all my ducks in a row? Keep rent receipts, keep communication logs. If you take pictures of things that have happened, either within the unit, outside the unit, different things like that, all those things become part of what would essentially be physical evidence in
Right.
court in the event that you need
Me too.
to do
Right.
that.
Because
So
the only
yeah.
people that can evict
Hmm.
a tenant is the sheriffs, right? So you can't you
Yeah.
can't kick them out. You have to go through the eviction process, as Lisa's sharing with you, with your documentation, and then the sheriffs is the ones that actually come and and take them out of your home. Okay. So,
Right. As tempted as you might be to call Junebug and them, that's not going to be the best
yeah,
idea.
we don't want to see that. So, all right,
Right.
right. Let's talk about some Chicago specific laws, right? So, all right,
Okay.
landlords, in Chicago has its own rules, right? So we've been talking about Illinois, um,
That's surprising.
right? But Chicago has its own rules, and the rules are called the residential landlord and tenant ordinance. And if you're
Yeah.
interested in us providing you a copy of that, we can actually share a copy of the ordinances with you. So, but yeah,
Yep, absolutely. So, there are some real specific things to keep in mind when it comes to the RLTO, because there are high penalties if landlords don't return deposits on time, specifically in the city of Chicago. If you don't give the disclosures that are required, then there's penalties for that as well. So you have to think about all those different things that, it's a greater impact to you as the business owner and the property manager and owner and the landlord, that there's going to be a stiff penalty to pay if you don't, one, know and understand the ROTO, but then also abide by it.
mhm.
So you got to CYA, CYB. Sorry, I don't want to be vulgar.
All right, so if you're the landlord, with your lease, you always have to provide a copy of the ordinance with the lease as well. So a lot of times we might write a lease, and then you also share that with them the ordinance, and then you might want them to sign that they've received it. And then if you're renting in
Yeah,
Chicago, make sure you follow the rules. So because all of these, the ordinance and these are guidelines that both you, the landlord, and the tenant have to follow. And so that you can make
yeah,
sure that if there is a need in order for you to evict anyone or you to sue your landlord, you followed all the guidelines that are set from the city of Chicago to make sure that everything is secure, right? So everything is fine for you.
right.
So so I would
Yeah, because you don't want to get in trouble with the city of
yeah,
Chicago.
not at
You don't
all.
want that
So
smoke.
I would say, just let us know if you'd like a copy of the ordinance. We can definitely send you a copy of that as well. So just comment below ordinance and we can give you a copy of the ordinance. If you want a checklist of the landlord checklist of things you need to follow, we can provide you a checklist. So just say checklist and we can give that to you, you too. So we've covered a lot
We keep
today.
it
Yeah,
simple.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We've covered a lot today. We've covered leases, deposits, maintenance, eviction laws, and Chicago rules. And then so that we know,
Chicago special
right,
rules.
right. We know we've
Yes.
got that we've put a lot on you during this topic. And there's actually we've only covered a small bit of it because we only had 30 minutes, but we want to make
Yeah.
sure that this is an important topic. We as our potential clients that are interested in purchasing multi units. We've just talked about how to house hack, how to be an
Right.
investor. We want to make sure that even though you purchase the property, there's a little come some guidelines that goes with it, and we want to make sure that you stay on
Yep.
track. So,
Absolutely. And if you're thinking about becoming a landlord or even about renting out your own home, reach out to us. That's what we're here for. We can help guide you. We can provide you some of the papers that we put together, like the brochures, the pamphlets, and the one pagers and stuff to go over some of the really important information that you need to know. It doesn't have to be a giant book, but just these couple of small resources can be things that can help you out. And then, of course, if you're ready to take that step for actual financing of a property, then Dion can help you find the property. I can help you get qualified so you can use the investor friendly products that we have so we can do the loan for you. But we can definitely get you to that next step for being able to invest in real estate.
yes, yes. So if you want to, as always, we start with the lender first and get pre-approved. And so Lisa can run all the numbers for you. Give her a call at the number below, and she can get you started as far as getting pre-approved. And then once Lisa, like she said, once she has you pre-approved, you and I can paint the town, right? And go out and view all the multi-unit properties that are out here. We start out with
Yep.
2 to 4 units I covered through FHA loans, right? And then
Yeah.
anything larger than that has different loans. And Lisa's gonna make sure we cover it all. All right.
That you're
All
ready. Whatever it is, however many units you want, I got you.
right. So make sure you follow us on YouTube or on Facebook. We have Water Cooler Wednesday. You can join us every week on Wednesday at 6 p.m. We definitely want you to be there or be square. So, um,
How do I know that you was gonna say
all my corny sayings, right? So, but we we thank you for joining us. We're so excited to come to you every Wednesday, and
everyone?
every Wednesday 6 p.m. We're here for you. All right.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
night.
See you next week. Am I gonna hear music this time?